Good morning children. Welcome back to English online class of Sri Gokulam Public School, Guruvayur. I hope you all are doing well and staying safe at home. Yes? Okay, let's start our today's session. Today we'll discuss the topic finite and non-finite verbs. We are discussing lesson 6, verbs. We have already discussed what are verbs and its main classification, main verbs and auxiliary verbs. We have also discussed subject-verb agreement. Otherwise, it's known as concord. Now, children, what do you mean by subject-verb agreement? Subject-verb agreement means the verb in a sentence has to agree with the subject in a sentence in number and person. What do you mean by number? Number means singular or plural. And what about person? Person means first person, second person and third person. So which is the first person? First person is I and we. Second person is you. And third person is he, she, it and they. So if the subject is singular, the verb also should be singular. If the subject is plural, subject means noun or pronoun. If the subject is plural, the verb also will be a plural one. The subject and verb in a sentence has to agree with each other. Only then we can frame correct sentences. I hope you understood subject-verb agreement. So let's move to today's topic, finite and non-finite verbs. Let's know more about finite and non-finite verbs with some examples. For example, he writes a letter. He wrote a letter. In these two sentences, which is a verb, children? It is, in the first sentence it is writes and in the second sentence it is wrote. And writes in the first sentence, it shows that the verb is in present tense. In the second sentence, wrote shows that the verb is in past tense. It's already a past action. So the verb write, it undergoes changes according to the tenses. It shows when an action is performed. It shows that when a letter is written. It shows the time. Tense means it shows the time of an action. Let's see some more examples. He wants to write a letter. She wants to write a letter. I want to write a letter. They want to write a letter. You want to write a letter. We want to write a letter. Children, can you identify the verbs in these sentences? There are two verbs in these sentences. Which are the two verbs? It is want and write. So when you check these two verbs, the verb want, it undergoes changes, right? Sometimes we add s at the end of the verb. Sometimes there is no s. Whereas the verb write, it doesn't undergo any changes. It remains the same in all these sentences. So let's see why want is undergoing a change. The verb want, it undergoes changes according to the subject. According to subject means it agrees to the subject in number and person. If it is a singular subject, it becomes wants. For example, the first sentence, he wants to write a letter. As he is a single person, we are referring to a single person, it is a singular subject. So we have to use only singular verb. We can make a singular verb by adding s at the end of a verb. Then she wants. Again, she is also a single person, singular subject. So we used singular verb. Next, we want. We is a plural subject. We means a lot of people, right? So we used want. We avoided that s to make it a plural verb. Next, you want. You is both singular or plural, and usually with you we use plural verb. You want. For example, you are a student. We don't say you is a student, but we say you are a student. Usually with you we use only plural verbs. In I want to write a letter, even though I means a single person, in grammar I is considered as a plural subject. So with I we always use plural verb. I want. I want to write a letter. Next, they want to write a letter. They also means a lot of people, so we have to use plural verb, want. I hope you understood how the verb is undergoing change according to the number and person of the subject. We told that the verb write, it doesn't undergo any changes. So the verb that undergoes changes, that agrees with the subject in number and person, is called a finite verb. So what is a finite verb? Finite verb is a verb that undergoes changes. A finite verb is a verb that undergoes changes according to the subject in number and person. And finite, what do you mean by the word finite? Finite means limited. So it is limited to the subject. It is limited to the grammatical properties of the subject. So it has a subject. Finite verb, it has a subject. It has to agree with the subject. And mostly the main verbs are the finite verbs. Next, let's see what is a non-finite verb. Here in this sentence, which is a non-finite verb, children, it is write. Why write is a non-finite verb? Because write doesn't undergo any change. So those verbs which does not undergo any change according to the subject in number and person is called non-finite verb. The verbs that undergoes changes are called finite, and those doesn't undergo changes are called non-finite verbs. I hope you understood the basic difference between finite and non-finite verbs. Now let's look at the examples given in your text. Neera serves tea to the guest. They served snacks to the teams. So children, which are the verbs in these two sentences? It is serve. And serve is the basic form of the verb. In the first sentence it is serves, and in the second sentence it is served. So in the first sentence, serves show that it is in present tense, and the second sentence it shows that verb is in past sense as we add ed at the end of the verb. So the verb serves, it changes according to the tenses or to denote the tenses. So we have already discussed the verb that undergoes changes are called finite verbs. So in these two sentences, serves and served is the finite verb. Let's look at the next set of examples. I had made idlis for breakfast. Ratul has made kheer for dessert. So in these two sentences, which are the verbs, children? It is had, made, and has made. You can see that the verb made in these two sentences doesn't undergo any type of changes. So made is a non-finite verb in these sentences, whereas had and has are auxiliary verbs and it undergoes changes. So those auxiliary verbs are the finite verbs in these two sentences. Then children, there is an exception in finite verbs if the verbs are followed by modal auxiliaries. You know which are the modal auxiliaries, right? May, might, can, could, shall, should, will, would, must, dare, need. So if the verbs are followed by these modal auxiliaries, then also the verb is a finite verb. It is called a finite verb. If we use verbs after this modal auxiliaries, it doesn't undergo any type of change. Still, it is a finite verb. Only in case of modal auxiliaries, it is still a finite verb, even though it doesn't undergo any changes. For example, I will win. Here, will is the modal auxiliary and win is the verb. So, here win is finite verb itself. Another example, they can swim. It will not undergo any changes. Still, swim is the finite verb in this sentence. Now, let's look at the textual exercise. Exercise H. All of you look into your text. Circle the finite verbs in these sentences. In the first sentence, Vinitha loves to eat ice cream. Here, which is the finite verb, children? It is loves. Because the verb loves, it will change its form according to the subject in number or person. Vinitha loves to eat ice cream. If instead of Vinitha, we have used they is a plural subject. They means a lot of people, right? So they is a plural subject. So if I have used they love to eat ice cream. Loves will become love. We have to avoid that S. So it will undergo changes according to subject in number and person, that particular verb. That's why we circled loves. Look at the second one. Baljit wants to be a computer programmer. Here, which is a finite verb, children? It is wants. So you have to circle wants in this sentence. Why? Because the verb wants, it will undergo changes according to the subject in number or person. If the subject is singular, it should be singular, and if the subject is plural, the verb should be plural. Now these non-finites are again divided into three: infinitives, gerunds, and participles. We will deal with these three topics in our next class. So I hope you understood today's topic clearly, finite and non-finite verbs. And try to complete that exercise H. So children, it's time to wind up our session. That's all for today. See you in the next class.